Well, good evening. My name is Nora Trenicosta. I am with TextHelp, and I am here to help you get familiar with Read and Write Gold so that you can use this as a tool to help your students with reading and writing and studying. So a little housekeeping before we get going. We are using GoToMeeting. We'll be recording this webinar separately. So you will have access to that recorded webinar on the CBE website, on the core website. The slides that we're using here will be posted, so you'll have access to all of those. All of the documents that I'm showing you today will be posted as well. So sit back and just follow along as best you can. Don't worry about trying to keep up. I just want you to get the basic information here. Later, if you want to go and look at the website and follow along, you'll be able to pull up the documents, the websites, and follow along. This may also be a chance if you want to work with your student at home and try and follow along, you can do that as well. Your teachers are getting their own training, so they'll be there to support you as well. But this webinar will be posted and available for you for as long as you need to look at it. If you have any questions, your first place you should go is your teacher. If you need help getting Read and Write Gold installed, you want to talk to your principal, and the team at CBE is there to help you as well. So with that in mind, let's kind of think about some of the challenges that your students might be facing, give you an overview of Read and Write Gold, give you some ideas for how we can help. We're going to share with you tools for reading and some of the tools for writing. We're going to share with you how you can support your students with the writing conventions, and then we'll give you some next steps for going forward. So some of you may have students who struggle with reading comprehension. Almost all students do. When we get to grade 4, we kind of make a shift from the students learning to read, just the basics of reading and those simple stories, to actually reading to learn. For a lot of students, the first day that they get to grade 4, the teacher puts down a textbook and says, read chapter 1 and answer the questions, and that's the first time that they've had to do anything independently. So for a lot of students, they struggle with that. A lot of our students struggle with writing. So your students, when it's time to sit down and write a paper, they get in front of the computer or they sit down with a piece of paper and they're staring off in space and they're unable to put anything down. So we need to give them some extra support to get them over that hump. Now, some of you may have students with disabilities whose reading and writing is even more of a challenge, and we actually come from the disabilities community. We're here to give them that extra support, again, that they need to be independent. For those of your students who are newer to English and their native language is other than English, sometimes there's some barriers for them to express themselves in English. So we've got some supports here that will help them as well. I'm demonstrating to you today the PC version of Read and Write Gold, PC version 11, but I'm actually demonstrating to you today from a MacBook. I'm using an emulator program called Boot Camp, so I'm functioning as a virtual PC, but Read and Write Gold is available for both PC and Mac. CBE has made it possible for you to get either one of those for your home computer. The PC version and the Mac version are very similar. Everything that I'm showing you today you'll be able to do on both. For those of you that are Mac users, you'll notice I have one big toolbar for the PC, and in this case it's kind of floating around. On the Mac, you will have a couple of little floating windows that you have access to, and just like anything else on the Mac and the PC, the Mac is just a little floatier. There tend to be like more bubbles and more little pop-ups, that kind of thing. I'm going to go ahead and dock this back over here. But really, we'll be able to work on a PC or a Mac, and our focus is on you being able to help your student at home with reading and writing. Your teachers are going to be getting some training on those higher comprehension and the more complex writing process issues. So we're here to help you, help your student to really do their best. So what in the world is Read and Write Gold? It's a toolbar. And that toolbar floats on top of everything else that you already do. And you might have noticed I have a kind of a large toolbar. We'll be talking about how you can customize that. So there's some very powerful tools. Most of your students are not going to need all of those tools. So we'll show you how you can customize down to exactly the tools that your student needs. But our focus is on reading, writing, and what we call research and study skills. And when you look at the toolbar as it comes out of the box, in general, your reading skills are just to the left of center, and you'll see your writing skills are just to the reading skills are just to the left of the center. Your writing skills are kind of all the way over here on the left. And then your higher order skills, the more complex skills that your students will be doing as they get older, those are on the right-hand side. So you'll have access to that full toolbar, but you can tone it down to just the parts that your students need. I wanted to share with you again, this is a toolbar. There's no content. This is not a book. This is not a testing program. So we'll be able to read things like Word documents and PDFs and websites, but you still need content. So this, again, will be made available to you. Here's some digital text resources that will help you if you're looking for things for your students to practice their reading with. These first three with the asterisk are just for students with learning disabilities. So for those of you who have a student at home with this disability, you may want to talk to your student's teacher about the Bookshare program and whether you can join that. This is for students with disabilities, so this could be students with a learning disability like dyslexia or dysgraphia. This could be a student with a visual disability, low vision. Could also be a student with an orthographic disability, or they have cerebral palsy and they're not able to turn the pages of the books by themselves. They would qualify to get these books. And Bookshare is sort of unusual in that they offer access to textbooks like your history book and your math book and your science book, but they also offer access to all of the books that kids love to read, like Harry Potter and the Twilight series and all of the popular books that kids like to read. So you have some extra options if you have a student at home with disabilities, but all the rest of these are available for you anytime, to everyone. This Project Gutenberg, it can be really helpful if any of you have students in the middle school and high school. Project Gutenberg has access to free copies of what are called public domain text. So these have to be older than Mickey Mouse. They're your classics. They are Shakespeare and Mark Twain and Dante and those kind of things. So your students in high school are reading Shakespeare. You don't have to go out and buy it. You can actually download it, and your students will be able to use it with all the great tools in Read&Write Gold. If you need extra practice for your math or your science or whatever it might be, a lot of these other sites have great resources for you. So some of the examples that I'm going to be using today that you'll be getting copies of, those came from those digital text resources. So why do we need Read&Write Gold? Let's take a look at an actual student. So this little guy is grade 7. He's obviously not reading at grade level. He's also really struggling. I want you to just take a minute and look at this and just kind of think about it and think about what he might be experiencing. His mother was spending between 3 and 4 hours a night with him working on homework, and even with that amount of support, this is as far as the student could get independently. There's a lot of things that I notice here. I notice that in the beginning, his writing, he's trying to write full sentences, but it's clearly there's some issues with his handwriting. And then as we progress, we see him using that text language, that IDK for I don't know, and the words are just getting bigger and bigger, and it looks to me like he's frustrated. It also looks to me like he has probably some physical issues with writing. That's probably very difficult for him to just put pencil to paper. So how can we help this student? This is the same student after using Read&Write Gold for 3 months. So he was understanding the concepts. He just couldn't tell us what he knew. He could not write that down. He was so focused on the physical act of writing that it was really holding him back from engaging with his schoolwork. The mother reported that that with the support of tools in Read&Write, he was more independent, and he had a normal, hour and a half or so of homework a night, like most kids do, and was able to really, make some big strides academically. So this is the kind of thing that we'd like to see with your students. So how do we do this? Well, we have text-to-speech. And we have other ways to help students read. We have built-in dictionaries. We have a picture dictionary. And before you think picture dictionaries are just for really little kids or students with severe disabilities, they are very, very helpful in helping to cement some kind of concepts in the content areas like math and science. Your students who may be newer to learning English, having that picture helps them so they don't have to code switch. They don't have to kind of mentally translate back and forth between their native language and English to think of the concept. So those can be very helpful. We're not going to get into all of these today, but for those of you using a PC, your students will have the ability to actually speak into the computer and have it type out what they say. We have tools for the writing process that help the students to kind of organize their thoughts and start creating outlines. So your teachers are getting training on that. So there's lots and lots to help your students with the reading, the writing, and the organization that they need to be successful. So what is text-to-speech? We probably all of us probably have some different items with text-to-speech on them. It used to be like science fiction, this wild thing to have a computer talk to you. But now most of us have, maybe we have a smartphone and Siri talks to us, or we might have a GPS that talks to us. So text-to-speech is everywhere now. But when we think about it in an academic setting, we want to think about text-to-speech with what we call dual highlighting. So the dual highlighting is when you have the active word that you're actually hearing lit up in one color, and then either the phrase as we have here, or the sentence or the paragraph lit up in a contrasting color. And there are some long-standing studies that show students, whether they're primary students or whether they're college students, with access to that dual highlighting, it can increase their comprehension by 2 grade levels on the average, as much as 5 grade levels of their comprehension. So it's that combination of the auditory and the visual of seeing that word lit up. It can help them to pay attention if they're on the autism spectrum. It can help them if they struggle with just like reading the words. That's going to help them as well. So you want to make sure that you pay attention to that dual highlighting. Also, our writing tools in Read and Write Gold in a 3-month study increased our students' use of writing conventions, the spelling, the grammar, the punctuation, by 276%. So we know probably a lot of students who could use some help with comprehension and with writing. So we're going to give you some tools to do that. So Read and Write Gold is a toolbar. It layers on top of what you already do. It helps you to read documents like Word documents and PDF documents. If you have a quiz, your teacher can scan that so your student can read that as well. We work in all the different browsers. So if you've got a Mac and Safari, or if you like using Google, it works in Chrome. So it works in all the different browsers. If you are a Google user, it will read not only Google Docs, but also read your Gmail. So we're just adding those extra buttons for reading and writing on top of what you're already doing every day. And we did talk about that large toolbar and how we can customize that toolbar to really help your student. So for the youngest students, you might want a smaller toolbar. And looking up here, you see that tool matcher icon. I'm actually going to take you to the Text Help website, and we are going to look at the tool matcher. And when we use the tool matcher, we actually get a screen like this when we go to Tool Matcher. It's toolmatcher.com, and you have this in your list of resources. And so you'll see a list of ways that we can help students. So for those of you in inclusive ed, if your student has an IPP, they may have specific accommodations that have been recommended for them. So we might have, your student may need something like a dictionary. They get to use a dictionary on tests. They may have spell check. And maybe we want to have text-to-speech. Okay, so you can choose, 2 or 3 or 4 items that you might want, and then you press this button here to see how we can help. And it's actually going to give you a list of those. There's also a button here that you would press that would allow you to download those to a Microsoft Word format. And I've done that already for you, so we don't have to wait for that to download. And you can see here we had exported, we had the tool, the accommodations that it addressed, and then what I did was I actually just right-clicked to add some additional columns. And I thought I would say, you know, I use this tool to read text out loud when it's not available. And when do I use it? I use it on my accelerated reader quiz. I use it on websites that have lots of charts. Maybe my science book is in a PDF format and I need to read that out loud so that I can pay attention. So your teachers have access to this tool as well, and they may have some really good insights on how to choose the right tools for your student. But even if they don't, you can choose these tools. It's a great way for you to communicate with your student. You could even have your student, you know, fill in some of this on their own if that would be helpful in their journey to feel really confident in using the Read and Write Gold tools. So you go to the Toolmatcher website, select the tools that you want. You can export them to a Word doc, and then you and your teacher can work together to make sure that your student has all the support that they need in accessing that toolbar. So, so let's talk a little bit more about the toolbar, and then I'm going to show you how you can actually change that toolbar to meet your students' need. So your younger students might only need just the reading features, and then if they get a little more sophisticated, they may want some of the writing features, and we'll start adding in those critical thinking features. We talked about how in 4th grade there's a little bit more critical thought, response to literature, and your students will be able to add to that toolbar and customize it to exactly the way that they learn. So we're going to go ahead and go to the program. We're going to talk about the basics of reading. So we're going to give you some tools to help support your students in reading. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring up a basic Word doc. I have not done anything to this document. It's a very simple document. So you can see here that I've got a Word document up. And you can see my toolbar. I'm going to go ahead and unhinge that toolbar. So I click that anchor, and now my toolbar is floating. I can anchor this over here on the left. I can anchor it over here on the right. I cannot anchor it on the bottom. Our friend Bill Gates kind of wants to own the real estate down here on the bottom of your PC. So that's the only place I can't dock it. So I like it at the top, and I'm going to go ahead and move my toolbar up to the top. I want you also to see that when I hover over this little text help logo in the corner of the toolbar, this is my big toolbar with everything, lots and lots of things on it, because my job is to show you lots of things on the toolbar. But we want your students to have a smaller toolbar. So there's a couple ways we can do that. I can click on the icon. You see how it says My Features, and now it's going to be just the study skills, everything. And when I say everything, there is a lot there. We can have just the reading features, just the writing features, just the research features, and now back to my custom toolbar. So you'll notice as I hover over these, each one of these has a little menu that pulls down next to the white arrow. And at the bottom of that, there is a short video tour, 2 to 5 minutes, that explains to you how that tool works. And some of your students are probably pretty tech savvy. I have a lot of friends who just hand their new smartphone over to their kid and let them program it. Your kids may be ready to just explore with Read and Write Gold and watch those videos and start using the tools. We're going to go ahead and go here into the toolbar menu, and I want to talk about how you can change that toolbar. So my toolbar is much bigger than probably what you want to give to your kids, but we can add and subtract things to the toolbar by checking and unchecking those boxes. So these are our homophone checkers up here. This may be a little hard to see online, but this is a little gentleman with his hand to his ear, kind of say, what? And so I want you to watch what happens when I go to my homophones. I've got these 3 homophone rules checked, and I'm going to uncheck, and you're going to see 1 man go away. I'm going to uncheck, and you're going to see 2 men go away. I'm going to uncheck, and you're going to see 3 men go away up here. I want you to watch up here. And I'm going to add back 3 homophone tools, and they're right back there. So it's just that simple to add and subtract the things that you need in the toolbar. Very, very simple. I have my toolbar set at small icons with no text, which means if I hold and hover my mouse over the icon, it will tell me what that does. For me, that's very helpful because I have a big toolbar and I want to see as much of it as I can. If I have the large icons, I'm not going to see very much of my toolbar. I'm going to have a lot more here. But for your younger students or your students that might have some visual difficulties or attention difficulties, those large icons could be very helpful. I'm going to go back to the small icons, and I'm also going to show you that you can change the view of your toolbar. The professional is sort of the traditional view, so many of your teachers may have been using Read&Write Gold for quite some time, and they're used to the traditional view. Read&Write Gold version 11 is Windows certified, and we have been engineered to work well with Windows 8. So those of you who have Windows 8 know that we have the tiles and the icons. So the icons become more iconic. They're very bold in Windows 8. So this would match your Windows 8. And then just like everything else in Windows 8, you have those tiles and you can change the color. So I can go in here and change the toolbar color to, whatever color I like. I'm just going to take it back to blue because that's what I'm used to. And I'm going to take this back to the professional view. But you can change a lot of things about that toolbar. So just know as your student grows into it, your teacher suggests something new, you can add things and subtract things to that toolbar just very, very easily. So that's your toolbar. I'm going to leave it up here at the top, and we're going to go ahead and read. It's as simple as inserting your cursor in the document and pressing the play button.
Readers and writers of all ages and abilities use Read&Write Gold's flexible set of support.
Now I'm going to pause this because I want you to see that dual highlighting. So you see support is highlighted in blue and the rest of my sentence is highlighted in yellow. I'm going to go ahead and stop this, and I'm just going to click somewhere else in the document and read.
This is a document which I typed yesterday. There are a few mistakes in it.
You think there's
At school I have problems with...
You think there's some mistakes in it. I think there are too. So it's great to hear the text read out loud so that we can understand it, but another way that text-to-speech is helpful to us is when we're writing. So, we know Microsoft told us there were some things wrong with these words because there's underlines under them. But when we hear something like yesterday and mistakes, we know that it's time for us to go back and revise our writing, right? So there's lots of different ways that hearing that text-to-speech is going to help us. Now, we want to be able to customize that, again, so that it's most useful for our students. So if we go up here to the play button and bring down that drop-down menu to our speech options, you'll see that there's a number of different voices here. So I've got Allison here. Maybe I am a younger student and I'd like for her to sound a little younger. I can raise the pitch of her voice.
This is your new voice. Is it okay?
Maybe I like to hear things really fast. Some of our students with visual disabilities love to hear things read really fast. They're used to hearing things and they just pick it up quickly. So we could be very fast.
This is your new voice. Is it okay?
We can slow things down here, but if you slow it down too much on the speed button, kind of sounds like Charlie Brown's
This is your
parents.
new voice. Is it okay?
If we think we're reading that physics textbook that's really challenging for us and we know we're going to have to hear it really slowly, maybe what we want to do is to change that word pause so that the voice stays a little more true.
This is your new voice. Is it okay?
So you've got lots of choices there in how you can change the voice. You have some voices here available for you. Here's another example of when I might change the pitch in the voice.
This is your new voice. Is it okay?
He sounds perfectly fine, but my learning style, let's say I was listening to something in a busy environment like a library on headphones, and there was a lot of activity around me. For some reason, this is just me, but when I hear a male voice, it's like Swiss cheese. It just goes in one ear and out the other. I don't comprehend any of it. But by raising the pitch of his voice a little bit, this is just me.
This is your new voice.
I remember what he
okay?
says. So everybody's different. You may find little tweaks that help you to learn better. Now these are some of the voices, and you'll see a few here. There are actually many more voices available to you through Read&Write Gold. You'll want to check and make sure you get all the voices installed that you like. If you have an older computer and you don't have a lot of memory and you want to conserve that memory, you don't have to install all the voices and take up that space. So it's up to you, but you have lots and lots of different voices available. And you'll notice there's lots of voices that read different languages. I am not planning on reading in Portuguese anytime soon, so I don't have my Portuguese voice checked. Because it's not checked, that doesn't show up in that top list of voices that I want to use. But you will notice there's actually 2 French Canadian voices. I live in California, and so Mexican Spanish is something that we have a great need for here, and you'll see that reflected in those voices as well. Let's talk about one other way that you might want to customize your reading. So remember, we talked about the dual highlights. You may have a student who has been prescribed filters for their reading to help with learning. So if they are supposed to read things in specific colors, we have a range of colors here that you can choose from that help them. I'm going to go back to the standard yellow and blue. You may also have students, instead of that dual highlighting, you might have a student with autism or some sort of processing disorder that they need a lot of help to pay attention. Or you may have a student who has issues with their vision. It's very tiring for them to track left to right when they're reading. You might want to choose speak with one-word display. So look what happens when we do that.
Readers and writers of all ages and abilities use Read and...
So you've got lots and lots of different options for how you set that up. I'm going to go ahead and go back to reading with the highlighting in the document. So it's just as simple as setting it the way you like and pressing the play
Readers
button.
and writers of all ages and abilities.
Okay. So you saw all those different language texts. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and open a French text. And I want to change my voice then to a French voice. So let's hear Amélie. And let's let Amélie read to us. And she's going to sound great in
Lucie en
French.
France, elle arrive. French reading comprehension.
And she's going to sound funny in English.
Lucie, étudiante des États-Unis,
French.
vient d'arriver à Charles de Gaulle, l'aéroport qui...
Okay, so we can highlight what we want to read.
Son projet est d'étudier en France pendant un an pour obtenir...
So it's just as simple as choosing the language that you want. We could also open up a Spanish language document, and we can choose the Spanish language document that we want to hear. So I can just click the play button on that. Let's go ahead and choose a Spanish voice. So I want to hear Paulina.
This is your new voice.
And we'll hear her speak in Spanish.
Reforma sortea enmienda venenosa en el Senado. 61313. Exigía que antes de abrir el camino.
So you've got lots of choices. If you have a specific voice installed on your computer and you have access to documents in that language, you will be able to read that language. So that's one of the ways that we can do that. We can also translate. So we have a translate button up here. I can pick up what I want to hear, and I can push the translate button, and you do need to be online to do this. And as long as you have the voice for that translation available on your computer, you will be able to hear that read back to you.
Los lectores y escritores de todas las edades y habilidades.
So let's go ahead and take a quick peek at how we can change our translating options. Pardon me. So for the paragraph translation, we can choose to translate from a number of different languages to, I believe, 60 languages. So you have lots and lots of options, not just English to Spanish. So maybe you don't have a lot of resources for your students at school and your home language is Thai. We can go ahead and translate into Thai for you. Okay, so you have tons and tons of options. I'm going to go ahead and take this back to Spanish. So we have lots and lots of options for how we do that. Okay, so we've talked about reading Word documents. We've talked about how we, choose languages, how we customize. But what about PDF documents? This little guy right here is probably kind of hard to see online. He's very small on my screen, but this is PDF Allowed, and it's supposed to look like a little globe with a face on it. So I can open a PDF two ways. I can click that PDF Allowed button and have it open up a PDF. But once I've installed Read&Write Gold on my computer, I can just open a PDF document, and that toolbar will actually be built right into my PDF. So you'll see right here, if I click, if I just open the PDF, it may not have the toolbar open right up, but if I click that extended button, then you'll see my PDF Allowed toolbar right in the button. And you can highlight the text, or what I like is to just click and speak. So I'm going to turn on Click and Speak, and I'm going to go right here.
While it is sometimes necessary to use poisons in the interests of human health, there are other options which should be explored.
So I can click anywhere here in the document.
Trapping should be undertaken with care. Traps should never...
And hear that read out loud. So for those of you that have access to digital textbooks from the publishers, those are very likely going to be in this PDF format. Okay. So we talked about reading a Word doc. We've talked about reading a PDF, but let's talk about reading online, because your students may have programs that are only available to them online. They may be assigned online research before they write a paper. They may need to look things up online. So how do we read online? You guessed it, we press the play button. So I'm going to just highlight some of the text that I would want to hear and press the play button.
Fósil fuerza de fuerza por
Oh my goodness, we're still reading in Spanish. So let's go ahead and go back here and turn off Paulina and go back to Allison. There we go. And we'll hear Allison.
Fossil fuels are fuels formed by natural processes, such as anaerobic...
And you might have noticed it continued reading after that first spot. I have it set up for continuous reading, so that's easy to do. And I can read on all number of websites, so I can just go to the website, highlight what I want to hear, click the play button, and off I go. I'm able to read what I want.
The products include gasoline, diesel fuel, aviation...
And I'm going to go back to Wikipedia, which is probably, not the best place for your students to start reading, but sometimes there's good information there. And I picked this page because it has an awful lot of hyperlinks in it, okay? If your student has issues with motor coordination and dexterity, it's going to be very hard to use their mouse to select the different things that are on this website. So they might want to use the Read the Web feature. All right, so I pulled down my menu and I selected Read the Web, and watch what happens. I'm just hovering over places.
Featured content. The Energy Information Administration.
So I'm just hovering over places on the website, and it's reading them out loud for me. So this is helpful on a very busy website like this. It's helpful if your students struggle with motor control. If your students are hesitant about using a program like Read&Write Gold and they need to get used to it, for those of you that have older students, your teenagers and your teenagers who don't want to look different from anybody else, if they're using social media, it may be really helpful to introduce them to these tools on, if they use Facebook or Twitter or whatever they use, to be able to just motor around like this and hear what their friends are saying and just have that browsing experience. But also, before they post what they want to say, to be able to hear that read out loud so that they know they're saying what they intend to say. This is huge for a lot of our students to be able to participate with their authentic thoughts online. So that might be a great introduction for some of your students to using the online tools. Now, this works great for any text that's accessible, but I want to talk about what you do when you hit
What's in a barrel of oil
that is not accessible. I am going to turn off Read the Web, so you don't have to hear me scrolling over things, and you'll see the same thing. Remember, we were able to pick up what we wanted to read, press the play button,
products that come from oil,
and hear that read. But look what happens when I try to pick up this content and read it. What's going on there? This is inaccessible content. And sometimes, when your teachers use Blackboard or they use other programs to create lessons, they may be typing a graph or a chart that they want to share with students, and the program may say, Do you want to use a template? Do you want to make this more colorful? Do you want to use a particular style? And they'll say, sure, it's going to look great. Let's do it. Unfortunately, sometimes when we do that, the computer takes a snapshot of what we've done. So in this case, as far as the computer is concerned, this could be a photo of the ocean. It doesn't know that I want to read it. So what I need to do is I need to use my screenshot reader here to actually lasso the content and have it read out loud. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you a brief video so you get a chance to see what those are like. Remember, those are, you just go to that white button to hear the video. But I'm going to go ahead, I've got this all queued up for you, and I want you to see the video for the screenshot reader.
This is a picture with text in it. To use the screenshot reader, click on the screenshot reader icon. Select the area you would like to read by using the left click of the mouse and drawing a box around the text you wish to be read. The text is read to you.
Ancient Greeks and Romans believed that volcanoes were under the control of gods. How else to explain the fiery spectacles that occurred without warning and with such destruction?
If you wish the text read again, click here.
Ancient Greeks and Romans believed that volcanoes were under the control of gods.
To close the box, click here.
So pretty simple. So just remember, when you encounter text like this, you use the screenshot reader button, right? So we've gone over the basics of reading. So we know how to change our toolbar. We know how to select the voices that we want. We know how to choose the language that we want. We've read a Word doc by pressing the play button. We've read a PDF document by either hitting PDF aloud or just opening up our PDF and using the click to speak. We've read some online content. You've learned how to translate and use the screen reader. So let's go ahead and talk about how we can support your students with writing conventions. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to open up a new Word doc. And let's talk about how we can use Speak as I Type. So I can try and type something out and press the play button.
THC a sentence.
But I can also go up here to my reading and I can press Speak as I Type. So let's see what happens.
This is a sentence.
And I may be pretty successful as a writer and I may really struggle with writing. So if I say
capital I, HV, hard, time, RTNG, woo, I, WNT, say.
So it's not going to be conventional enough that it's really going to hear back what I want it to say. So
IHV hard time RTNG will IWNT say.
So if I'm not very conventional in my writing, the Speak as I Write might not be the best tool. What would be the best tool? Best tool for me, instead of Speak as I Type, would be word prediction. So if I'm one of those kids that I could sit and stare at the computer or the piece of paper for half an hour and there's one or two words on it at the end of that, word prediction is my best friend. There's something called errorless writing. So for our students that really struggle to put any thoughts to paper, just getting them to create a sentence is really a big deal. So let's think about how we could use word prediction that way. So I'm going to say I can
candidate.
So I've got my word prediction set up so when I hover over the word, it speaks it out loud to me. There's a dictionary over here, so I can look that up in my dictionary. I can hear that read out loud to me,
metal
right?
Container for food or drink or paint, etc.
So I can pick up the words that I want there. I can
think about the, what, the, You happened. With in this case.
I'm going to say in this
Studied story and write about it and
right? So to have that support there can be really a big deal. Let's take a look at some of these supports that are going to pop up in the word prediction a little bit more. How about I'm not a conventional writer. So what if I say
animals and walls like two.
two. I'm not sure which two I want. So this little button right here that looks like an ear, that's telling me this is a confusable word and I need to think about it. So let's look it up in the dictionary and find out.
Two.
All right, so the animals like two. I gave it to him. Okay, that's the one I want. So the animals like, and I click on it.
Eat.
And I'm going to say E-E-T.
Eat.
It's still going to come up with eat. I didn't come too close to saying sausage, so it's going to come up, okay? So that word prediction is going to really help your students if they just have trouble getting anything on the paper at all, or if they're very unconventional spellers, that word prediction is going to help them so much. I know a lot of us are used to it now on our phones and in our tablets, and the word prediction is there to really support your students. So to get to the word prediction, you just press the little crystal ball and off you go. So what about when we're revising an existing document, okay? So remember, we heard this lady read out loud to us.
This is a document which I typed yesterday. There are a few mistakes in it.
And we heard those mistakes,
At school, I
right?
have problems
but
with
we need to know what to do about those. So we can use the tools that are available to us in Microsoft Office. So let's go ahead and open up the review tools in Microsoft. So let's see what happens if we take a sentence like this. We know there's some issues because of those red lines under it. And I'm sure many of your students at home do this. If they look something up and they get a suggestion, they just take the first suggestion, right? So that's not going to help us in and of itself. Let's go ahead and take a look at what Microsoft is going to tell us. So it's going to pick up a word like school, right? With, it's not going to find with. Physics, it's looking for words that start with an F, but it's not going to find that. General, so it's about 50-50 whether it actually caught the spelling errors that we needed to find. So let's go ahead and see what happens if we do the same thing with the phonetic spell check in Read and Write Gold, right? So it's going to bring up a box that's got our term. It's got it in the dictionary, so I can actually press here and hear this read out loud.
School, the people, such as teachers and students, that make up a school.
Okay, that sounds like what I want to say, so I'm going to change that. With. Okay, I want with. Physics. Why did that come up to the top so fast like that? Physics. The reason why is because our spell checker is smart. So it notices if your child makes the mistake of confusing PH and F all the time, it's going to come right up to the top of the pile. If it's a word that I use all the time, that's okay. I can go ahead and have that come up to the top of the pile. So I'm going to go ahead and change physics, generally, and knowledge.
Spell check completed.
And change those right in my document. But we have some other issues here, and these are what we would call those homophones or sound-alike words, those confusable words. So let's go ahead and take this part of the text, and remember that little man. I'm going to click the first little man, and it's going to highlight in blue any words that are easily confused, all right? And if I click the next little man, it's going to help me to review those. So I can move this box over here, and I can say, is it due like the morning dew? Is it due, or is it due like past due? And I'm going to go ahead and go with due. And it comes up with things like you. We probably want this you. no and no, but it's going to come up with, I would never even think of this one. Well, what's the odds? But if you're taking a class about electricity or science, that might happen to you. So you may need to change that. So we can go ahead and, do what we need to do there. And I wanted to point out that it not only homophones, but confusables like difference and deference, affect and effect, thorough and through. And if we want to turn those off, then we just click here and turn off those buttons. All right, so we've got lots of choices in support for the writing conventions. So remember, we can support our students to speak as they type if they just need some help getting things on the paper. You can get later instructions on using the text, not just the text-to-speech, but the speech input, so they can talk into the computer and have it type. We'll learn that at a later date. Word prediction, if your students are very unconventional spellers, they're really going to need that to help. If they're unconventional spellers and they don't have trouble getting anything on the paper, that's when your phonetic spell check is going to come in. And frankly, I think almost all of our students need help with that homonym checker. I have some teachers who tell me they have all the students highlight the entire paper, light up those words in blue, and go right on through and double check to make sure that they really are saying what they intend to say. So we've given you some of the basics today on the reading and writing conventions. If you need help getting Read and Write Gold installed, do contact your school principal. He can help with that. Ask your child's teacher about using that tool matcher tool to support your student homework and to make sure that you customize that toolbar to exactly what your student needs. Keep an eye open for posted webinars and videos. There's lots of things available to you also on the Text Help website. And then you can practice with the onboard videos, or you can go to our website and look for those videos. So we're here to help. We want to make sure that you and your students have all of this supports that you need for the reading, the writing, and later on some of the study skills. So do let us know how we can help, and we look forward to seeing your students succeed.